it's basically what Vonnegut did in Slaughterhouse-Five. And Slaughterhouse-Five is one of the great novels of the 20th century. Slaughterhouse-Five, and Vonnegut is the closest thing to the 20th century's Mark Twain in terms of a humorist, a parodist, and whatnot. Now, um, that book, Slaughterhouse-Five, deals with World War II. It deals with wacky circumstances, characters being humorous unintendedly. But there's a pathos, there's a development of character, and even when you get the wackiest aspects of it, such as the main character being taken off to another planet and put in a zoo naked with a porno star, uh, it works because we have seen this character in uh, really debased circumstances, violent circumstances during World War II. We've seen him deal with an insane wife. We've seen him deal with, as he time trips throughout that novel, we've seen him deal with a lot of shit. You don't have that in Gravity's Rainbow. In Gravity's Rainbow, there's some wacky plot. And just to give you an example, off the top of my head, I read Gravity's Rainbow full, cover to cover, 4 or 5 years ago. The last time I read fully Slaughterhouse-Five was maybe not even this century, probably the late 90s. And I read it 4 or 5 times, probably from when I first read it when I was about 20 to the end of the century. I have watched, the last time I watched the movie of Slaughterhouse-Five was maybe about 4 or 5 years ago as well. But I can't really recall even the plot because there really isn't a plot in Gravity's Rainbow. There's some wacky stuff that goes on. There's some spy stuff. There's the title refers to the arc, the parabola of U-2 rockets, I believe, and there's a bunch of violence and sex and ha ha ha. It's trying to be postmodern, and it utterly fails because it doesn't develop the characters. Billy Pilgrim, as wacky of circumstances as you put him in, is a great character because you get the little moments where you're behind his eyes, as I've said before. You get behind the character's eyes, and their eyes worth getting behind because it makes observations. There's a really good scene towards the end of the novel where we see what Billy has said all along, that he's going to be murdered by this wacky guy that he was in World War II with on the American side. And he's giving a talk to like a friars organization saying, and there's a man who's crazy and insane and has hated me for the last 30 years and is going to assassinate me tonight and whatnot. And then he does, and then Billy goes back and relives everything again. You don't have that in Gravity's Rainbow. It's a totally blank slate. And not only that, but on a poetic level, in the sentence structure, Vonnegut uses these little rat-a-tat sentences, these little humorous asides. Pynchon will go on with often these long sentences that have no music. There's no alliteration, there's no assonance, and that's not as important in prose as it is in poetry. But Vonnegut has a music to his writing. Pynchon is utterly lacking it. And I've seen it, I've also read portions of Mason Dixon, his other big, long book that's often held up as a masterpiece. And I've probably read 2 or 3 chapters worth of excerpts from that, and it's pretty much the same crap that's in Gravity's Rainbow. Gravity's Rainbow, though, is a good example, though, versus Slaughterhouse-Five. Slaughterhouse-Five is, in a sense, a non-Pereal book. Vonnegut has done other books in that Vonnegutian style, but Vonnegut is non-Pereal. There is no other Vonnegut, just like there's no other Mark Twain. That's not to say in his later years, Vonnegut, has maybe 4 or 5 great books, and they're usually about 50,000 words. I think Slaughterhouse-Five is 50 to 60,000 words. Jessica counted them or looked it up, and Gravity's Rainbow is 5 to 6 times as long, 330 to 350,000 words. But it doesn't have the poetic punch. It doesn't have the depth that Slaughterhouse-Five does. It's just like a big fart. It's just like it's like if you had some Jello just oozing out and lowering into a swamp. It just goes out and it poisons things around it.